This is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Drive Podcast. Patriots get their first home win of the year. They defeat the New York Jets 54-13 to improve their record to 3-4 on the year. Fun game to watch. First game where feels like they played a whole complete game from start to finish. Played it well. Did a lot of things good. So we'll have a lot of good things to discuss from this game, and a lot less negatives than we've seen in the beginning. 4 or 5 games of the season where there's been some ups and downs. But we got a special guest joining us today, Past Discuss, on Instagram. He has his own podcast that he does, Yo Soy Fiesta. Also does some episodes. We've done one together on his Instagram, so go check him out there. But how's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Jace, how you doing?
It's going good. I'm excited, but it's just the Jets, right? It's just the Jets. We can't overreact.
Yeah.
That's false. It's not just the Jets. Who's the first team in the NFL to score over 50 this year? We are. That's freaking right, Pats fans. We are the first team. Let's go. Great.
Everybody predicted, we'd be the first team to drop 54 points in this NFL season. But yeah, what were your guys' overall thoughts on this game? I know it is just the Jets, but it seems like there was a lot of positive things to take away from it.
You want to go first, or are you good?
Yeah, you can go.
I mean, you can say it's just the Jets, but you could say that as much as we ripped this team for barely squeaking out a win against the Texans, this is what we kind of expected. This was a kind of win that we'd expect against a bad team. So if we're going to be consistent, that you do have to praise this team for its performance today. I thought they were solid in all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams, and especially the offense. The offense was moving, and Josh McDaniels was really creative with the play calling, a lot of trick plays, and the ball was always moving. Like they score on like 6 straight drives or something like that. So there's not really much to complain about the offense. I thought Mac Jones had a solid day. I thought he started off a little shaky, but overall had a really good day, over 300 yards passing, and I believe a touchdowns. So, I mean, the offense did really well. The defense, I mean, they did well. They held them to the 13 points, and I thought overall they did well. There's still some concerns about like the secondary a little bit and stopping the run. I feel like we're still very slow up front. But for this week, you cannot complain about this game, I don't think. And I think you should feel good going into this next stretch of games.
Yeah, for me, I was very impressed. Like you mentioned, 6 drives with points coming off. 5 of them, our first 5 drives in the first half. We could go into the locker room leading 31-7. I thought that this is the best the offense has looked. And we talked about this in our pregame episode, Cole, is getting Jonnu Smith involved early. And he went out early with an injury, but 2 for 51 yards, 52 yards, something like that right off the bat. A nice, easy little screenplay and then a play action pass where he gets behind the backers and catches it. And so it was good to see him get involved, but we saw everyone get involved. I thought this is the one game where we can't criticize Josh McDaniels' screen calls because he added just enough window dressing on it where Jacoby Myers was going one way, and then it took all the attention off of Brandon Bolden. He was able to have a heyday in the backfield catching passes. So I thought that this was a very creative offensive scheme today. Yes, the Jets were missing one of their best defensive players in C.J. Mosley, but I just don't think he stops us from scoring at least 42. I mean, he's a great player, but he's not going to hold this offense to any or to a significant less amount than what we scored. So I was very impressed with the offense. Defense is looking shaky, especially with injuries. This is the second game in a row now. We haven't generated much pressure, especially sacks. Only sack coming in the first drive off of a Miles Bryant cornerback blitz. We're not getting enough with Judon, Barmore, Uche, guys like that we saw previously in the year. So that's a little concerning. And then our secondary is just getting very, very thin, and it's getting a little scary. So we'll have to get some guys off of IR, have to get some guys healthy that didn't play this week. Sean Wade, I think now that Jonathan Jones is on IR, hopefully he can come back with a concussion, come back out of concussion protocol and start contributing, because we're going to need that depth in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, overall, you can't complain too much winning by over 40 points in the NFL. That doesn't happen very often. this is what we've been waiting to see from them. I mean, they've had flashes of being a good football team. They performed well against the Bucks for the most part, competed with the Cowboys team till the very end. They really could have won either one of those games. They probably should have won both those games based on how they were looking early on. So, I mean, this is what we're waiting to see. This is how you should handle a bad football team. When you're a good team, you should beat bad teams by maybe not 40 every time, but you should handle it easily, and there be no doubt left out there who could have won this game. Last time, I think when we went up against the Jets, it was a little concerning because they got a lot of pressure on us. We just, the offense couldn't really get moving very often. It was really inconsistent. And with getting 4 turnovers in that football game, only putting up 25 points, it was a lot of field goals, not a lot of touchdowns. The red zone percentage wasn't great that first game. This game, I mean, it was a lot different. The offense was constantly moving up and down the field. They were using different trick plays, getting creative. The run game was amazing. The offensive line really impressed me. This is probably the most consistent game that I've seen as a whole from this unit in general. They've mixed it up. Shaq Mason came back. He did go out late in the game with that same abdominal injury, so that's a little bit concerning. But overall, the offensive line played well. The passing game was solid. I agree. Mac looked a little shaky early. He missed a couple throws there, but he bounced back, had a great game, had that beautiful dime to Kendrick Bourne down the sideline that KB game just couple inches short of scoring a touchdown on. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's exciting to see the growth in this team, and this is what you want to see a good football team do to a bad football team.
You hit the nail on the head about the offensive line. The offensive line had its best game of the year by far. I mean, I don't know how many hits they gave up, but like it wasn't many. Like there's not really many moments in that game where you remember like, oh man, that was a killer sack, or Mac really had to get rid of that, or stuff like that. So I mean, like, so the line finally found some consistency. I know Mason went out late, but like I thought he did well. Owenu at right tackle was really good. And just, I think the whole line, even Isaiah Wynn coming back, I didn't think he was that bad. I think he had a penalty or two, but besides that, I thought he was fine. I would like to look at the tape of that, but like overall, this is the best the line's looked all year.
Yeah, I agree. The stability at the offensive line today is really what made the difference. Mac Jones was only on his back 2 sacks. One of them, he didn't even turn his back before he got sacked. I don't know if it was a miscue in pre-snap read on Mac's fault or what. We'll find that out in the tape. And then a couple other hits, but they said on the broadcast too, they're like, this offensive line is playing like they've played together for 15 years. They were passing things off. They're trusting Mac to check protections. So they look good. And then the real big part of the offensive line is we got the run game going early and often, is we didn't have to rely on Mac Jones throwing the ball down the field for us to move it. We were getting 8, 9, 10 yards of carry with Damian Harris right off the first carry, and they couldn't stop it. And he was carrying us down the field, and then it opened up the play action game. It opened up the deep shots. It opened up a bunch of other things. So the offensive line playing consistent today was the highlight for me. That just so that our rookie quarterback, that just takes a little bit of pressure off of him, but it makes a world of difference in the offensive scheme. And I think we saw it today.
And I think that was kind of one of the biggest things that was holding us back so far this year was we expected, at least, I mean, based off our beginning of the season predictions, we expected that one of the main things we wouldn't have to worry about is this offensive line and this running game. And so far early in the year, granted, there's been injuries. Trent Brown's been sitting on his couch for 3 months. So overall, just not a lot of continuity at that offensive line position. Guys have been in and out, switching around, moving different spots. When you got Yasir Durant and Justin Herron switching at right tackle midway through every game, they're switching like every quarter. That's not great news. So I think a big part of why this offense had so much success, yes, it was against the Jets, but this performance overall as an offensive unit was 20 times better than in week 2 when we played the same football team. I think just having that offensive line and that run game going, being able to protect Mac, let him make his reads, let the routes develop, all that stuff. We saw more explosive plays. We saw good trick plays. The screen game was working. The running game was working. Everything was working. We even saw Bill go for it on 4th down. Unusual, but that was great to see, especially after the frustrations last week. I don't know how you feel about that, Jacob, but
I know. I love that we went for it on 4th down when we're up 17 against the Jets, but not so much against Dallas. But be that as it may, kind of like what I said at the beginning, like, again, you can say it's just the Jets. The Jets are a bad football team, but this is the first time we've got beat up on a bad football team, because for one, we played them already. We played the Texans, and you could debate that the Saints are a bad team, but like regardless, this is the best overall game for this Patriots team, like execution wise, like this is the best game that they've executed so far this year. So, and I think that's something to be excited about because you haven't seen this team execute at the level that they did today all year. And so that's something to build off of, regardless of the opponent. And I think that makes you feel better about this stretch of games coming up, like the Chargers.
Yeah, the Chargers is going to be a test for the secondary, depending on how healthy we are. But the one thing that you mentioned earlier, the episode is the run game. I was actually really impressed with the run defense, going off of not having Godchow and Lawrence Guy being a little limited with a wrist injury. We saw a bunch of different combinations at the offensive or at the defensive line position today, and I thought Barmore and guys like that looked a little slower because they had to play such extended amounts of time because of the injuries we had on there. So I think the lack of depth there towards the end of the game maybe slowed us down, but we still only held them to 3.6 yards per rushing attempt, and they didn't go for 140 like they did the first time we played them. They only went for 62 on 17 carries, and I thought that they'd get a lot more touches to the running backs, especially after their success in week 1 or game 1, I should say, week 2. But we knocked that run game out early, and we made Zach Wilson throw the ball, and he got injured, and then we made Mike White throw the ball, who surprisingly actually kind of had a semi-decent day. I wouldn't call it a successful day, but for his first start, came in and made some surprising things, especially against the Patriots defense, who picked off Zach Wilson 4 times the first time we played him. So I thought the run game was pretty good, knocking it out early. But yeah, I'd like to see those depth guys come back and create a little bit more, rotation so guys aren't getting tired, because Christian Barmore is a big dude. Lawrence Guy's a big dude. Those guys can't be playing 60, 70 snaps a game. That's going to suck in the later part of the year if they're doing that every game.
I think the biggest thing, real quick, about why Mike White had more success early on than Zach Wilson is because you could see it right from the get-go. I mean, not necessarily that first, when he went in the red zone, that's not what I'm talking about, but when he had his first real drive with that Jets team, he was taking what was given to him. He wasn't going for the deep shots. He was taking the checkdowns, taking what the defense was giving him. And yes, we were up by a decent amount, so we were probably playing softer coverage. But I mean, that's what Zach Wilson just did not do at all week 2. And I mean, he did a little bit more this week, but still overall, he looks for the big play, and sometimes he misses some wide open stuff that could get 10, 15 yards instead of 25, 30. So I think that's kind of why he had more success. I thought the defense overall, obviously there's some concerns there with how they performed overall, but I mean, given the circumstances with Jonathan Jones being out, I thought that was going to be much more of an impact than it ended up being. We had a couple guys on the defensive line. Also, Hightower was out. We had a lot of guys banged up. McCourty was out pretty early. So it just, with all the guys we had banged up, I still think Barmore makes an impact quite often. I mean, in the passing game and in the running game, he's kind of been solidifying as an overall solid player in both aspects of like passing and rushing the passer and stuff and run gaps and stuff. And another guy, Juwan Bentley, who's made his impact shooting the gaps and stopping runs. He had another 1 or 2 behind the line of scrimmage today. So overall, I was pretty happy with the performance given the circumstances of how many guys are kind of banged up right now.
Can I just say this? The Zach Wilson and what's his name, Mike White, that whole comparison, that such an abomination to the Jets franchise. It's not even funny, like because you hit the nail on the head. He's taking what the defense was giving him. Zach Wilson can't even do that. He doesn't think to do. It just speaks he's not ready, and the fact that this Jets organization is just throwing him out there because of his upside, his raw talent, it's such a mismanagement of a rookie, of a young asset. I said this after week 2, like it's already over in New York. It's already over for them. But aside from that, Bentley, I thought Bentley he's a lot faster than he looked last year.
So much better than last year so far.
Yeah, it's not even. He looks like a completely different player.
He really does.
And Hightower wasn't even out there today, so yeah. I think Bentley has been a real positive, really something positive coming out of on the defense right now, because he's a lot faster. He shoots the gaps a lot quicker, and he makes a bigger impact on the run defense. So I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, I want to get guys' opinion on this comment. Opinions on Mac Jones so far. I think a lot of people have somewhat criticized Mac Jones saying, he hasn't been explosive. He's been efficient, but not explosive. He's not doing enough to win us games. What are your guys' opinions on Mac Jones so far? Because personally, I think he's been the best rookie quarterback out of this draft class.
Yeah, you go first.
I think you're right. I think he has been the best QB out of this draft class so far. It just bugs me the debate on Mac Jones. Just people are so dispersed on this. It's like one side or the other. Like he's been good enough, not been good. He's a rookie. And I think people forget that. People sometimes like to jump to like, oh, he's in the NFL. Here are his standards. Well, it is a little different when you're a rookie. It's your first. He's played 7 games so far. I think for a rookie, he has heavily exceeded expectations, and he has a great handle on the offense. He's tough as nails. The shots he's taken so far this season, and he just gets right back up. Unreal. And the mental toughness is just throwing a pick 6 and then throwing a touchdown the next play. I mean, come on, who does that? It's just, I think Mac Jones has done really well. Like I'm not saying he's like a top 15 quarterback. I'm not saying that, but you got to base it on the expectations of a rookie. And he has heavily exceeded my expectations for this rookie season. Because a lot of people, including myself, thought like, okay, going in this year, you're going to be like, okay, so you're going to win on defense and manage the game on offense and just win in spite of him. It's been the opposite all year. Mac Jones has played extremely well, basically each of the 7 games, and the team around him has been garbage in terms of execution. So like, he's exceeded expectations. I don't think you can ask much more from him for his rookie season. So for right now, obviously later in the year and next year, you like to see him take some steps, but for right now, I think he's playing extremely well.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on what you said there at the beginning, the fact that people are forgetting he's a rookie and kind of just naming him as a current NFL quarterback, I think speaks volumes about how he's been performing. When they're holding him to that standard of a current NFL quarterback, like a veteran guy, a guy who's been in the league and has been there, done that, and he's only 6 games in. I mean, 7 games in now. I think that speaks volumes about how he's done. He's been tremendous so far. He's way over exceeded my expectations. I think he's been great overall. His progression, his progress from training camp, from week 1 to even week 6, from week 2 to week 6 against the Jets, both those games looks completely different. You can see him slowly coming out of the only check down, which isn't a bad thing if that's what the defense is giving you. It's just, I know it's boring to people's eyes watching an offense that's slow like that, methodically driving down the field slow. But he's starting to take bigger shots. They're trusting him more. His mental toughness is insane. His physical toughness is insane. That the guys talk about it all the time. David Andrews, Matthew Slater talked about it in one of the mic'd up things after the game the other day. And it's really good to see. I think he has all the traits of being in a solid NFL quarterback for the next decade, 10, 15 years. I'm extremely happy with the guy. I don't think there's really maybe one other quarterback I'd rather have than Mac Jones if we were redrafting right now. Maybe not even. For this year, he is by far the best quarterback year 1 as a rookie quarterback. And I think that speaks volumes for a guy who was drafted 15th overall.
Yeah, I agree with what Alex said here, how he's our next guy. There's only 4 quarterbacks that have thrown at least 50 or more attempts that have a higher completion percentage in the NFL right now. Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, and Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton's thrown right at 50. We all know Justin Fields has been starting there for a little bit. But Mac Jones is completing 71% of his passes. The next closest rookie is Davis Mills at 63%. It's absurd the stuff we're seeing. And then another stat I have here that I read on Twitter, he became the 4th rookie quarterback of all time with at least 225 passing yards and a touchdown pass in 5 consecutive games. The only other 3, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and Deshaun Watson. I'd say that's pretty dang good company to be in as a rookie quarterback. And yes, we've had a couple tough losses, and I think we still should be critical on him. But I think you guys have hit on the head. People are forgetting he's a rookie quarterback because of the expectations and the way he played at Alabama and the way we heard about him in the offseason, in preseason, the first couple games is he's almost past that, right? He's not making the dumb mistakes like Zach Wilson, like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields today against the Bucs. He's not making those dumb mistakes. He's playing good, sound, solid football, and he's put us in a chance to win every single game we've been in. We have not been blown out one single game like you saw the Bears do, like you've seen Jacksonville, like you've seen the Jets. We've been in every single game that Mac Jones has played, which has been all 6 so far. Well, 7 now. Yeah, all 7. So he's putting us in opportunities to win, and that's all we can ask for, right?
Oh, for sure. And then I think the check down thing is such a casual take. It's not even, it bugs me every time because I mean, that's kind of the point. Because or you're either gonna get that or you're gonna get what Zach Wilson's doing and throwing a pick downfield. Like,
Yeah, which would you rather have? Like,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
You want if the read down the field isn't open, wouldn't it make sense to throw a check down? I mean, I don't understand why people like take that as a knock, but regardless, he is playing smart football, and I think the limitations because he's playing like right out of the gate as a rookie, there are some limitations like play calling wise and just like kind of the reads. Like, I mean, you're not gonna see him make two multi read plays like early in the season because he's not that far in it yet. I think because if he took a year off, he'd come out of the gates next year like firing on all cylinders. But that's what people expect year one, and I don't think that's realistic. I think it's like the fact that he's came out of the gate like this, and he's slowly getting more and more involved in the offense, like more and more different kinds of play calling to his skill set. It's getting better as the year goes on. The play calling is going to open up as the year goes on, as we keep saying. And frankly, at this point, you don't see a lot of limitations left on Mac Jones since the start of the season. Like, it's gone down each game, and I think now you're pretty close to his full potential for this year, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive what he's doing. And early on, we kind of noticed, and we pointed out on a couple of the episodes, we showed some film of him kind of when he tried to go through those like 2-3 read progressions. He would skip a guy or go too fast, and he'd miss Jonnu Smith for a wide open touchdown in that week 1 against Miami, or there was a couple other ones in weeks like 2 and 3. But you're slowly, but not really that slowly, pretty quickly actually seeing him progress and be able to go through those progressions, not miss the guy who's open, make the right read, make the right throw. And I mean, it's just smart quarterback play. Would you rather have a guy who drops back, looks around, says, "Oh, I'm going to try to fit that into a window into triple coverage because Corey Davis is, I mean, our number 1 receiver, and he's going to go try to make a play. Boom. Okay. Interception, turnover. Okay. I threw 4 picks this game now. I gave the other team 4 more opportunities than they should have had to score touchdowns and beat us in a football game." Or a guy who says, "Okay, nope, this guy's triple covered. I'm going to go to the guy who's wide open for the check down for 8 yards. And then, okay, I'm going to do it again because he's open again. And we're just going to go down the field. We're not going to make bad football plays. We're not going to turn the ball over. We're going to make good decisions and put our team in a good place to succeed and to have a good opportunity to win a football game."
Yeah, he's doing it the right way. Alex says right here how Tom Brady built his career off checkdowns. And I was talking about this the other day to one of our offensive coaches at the college I coach at. And I agree, is offensive coordinators sometimes get very greedy, and they get sick. Even they get sick of throwing checkdowns. They want to go for the deep ball. Everyone wants the deep ball, right? Everyone says chicks dig the long ball. It is. It's exciting. Chicks dig the long ball. Everyone comes to watch teams put up like tons of points. They don't, I hate to say it because I'm a defensive guy, but they don't want to watch a 13-3 Super Bowl like we had against the Rams. So they want to watch points. So even offensive coordinators get greedy and want to take the long passes. But I think that's something Josh McDaniels has always been good at, is he takes what the defense is given to him. If they're going to give us 5 checkdowns in a row to James White or Brandon Bolden in this scenario, we're going to take it, and we're going to take the 5 yards and get in a second and manageable, and then, go off of what they give you. I think that Josh McDaniels has done a very good job developing Mac Jones, and that obviously starts at his career at Alabama too, sitting behind Jalen Hurts, sitting behind Tua, guys like that, and being behind great offensive coordinators and Nick Saban, who's an all-time great college football coach, and have teached him right. They have coached him right. He knows that you don't have to go for the long ball every play. It doesn't matter if you put up 7 points in one play or 7 points in 7 plays. As long as you get the ball in the end zone and you don't turn it over, you're putting your team in a good chance to win. So I've been very impressed with how he manages the game, and he's still been explosive these last couple games. Today, over 300 yards, first time in his career. I mean, it was great to see, even if it was just the Jets.
I think people get hung up on the tight window throws that people like Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes make down the field, that like they think it's like, oh, if you're good enough, you'll fit it in to that window no matter what. If you're good enough, you'll make it. And I think that's just not the case a lot of times because, I mean, unless he's Randy Moss, like unless if there's no window to throw that ball into, you're just chucking it up for grabs. And that's such a low percentage play that people think like, oh, if you're an elite quarterback, you're going to make that play. When it's just people think it's a video game, and it's not. It's real life, and it's going to get like picked off like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields today. So I mean, I think just as much the checkdowns are boring to a lot of people, especially non-Patriots fans, but it's very efficient way of moving the ball, taking what the defense gives you. Like, of course, you like a big play here and there, but like, if you can just like slice and dice down the field like Tom Brady used to always do it, like as a pocket passer, you can do that and win games. You don't need the big plays every other drive.
Especially, I mean, not only that, but even if you're hitting them consistently with checkdowns and getting 5 to 7 yards per play on passing plays like that, eventually it's going to, your time of possession is going to go up, that their defense is going to be on the field longer. They're going to get tired. They're going to get frustrated and tired of you throwing 5 to 7 yard passes every play. And they're going to have to start doing something to defend it. And then once you keep doing that, keep taking what they're giving you. And then eventually they're going to give you something else. And you're going to say, okay, now this deep shot is open, or now this even 15-yard in cut or post or whatever it is. Now this opportunity is here because I can pump fake to the check down and the linebacker steps up and I can fit it in behind him. So there's just different stuff like that. And overall, when you're early on in your career and you're hitting these checkdowns consistently, it's frustrating for some people to watch, but that's how you build confidence. As an NFL quarterback in your first year, nothing's easy. And when you can hit those easy passes and start to build confidence, once you get more comfortable in the system, you got games under your belt, you understand defensive coverages better and different safety rotations and all that different stuff, you're going to get more comfortable and you're going to be able to hit these different opportunities that they're giving you, these different deep shots or even just intermediate passing throws, just taking what the defense gives you every time and making a smart football move. And that's what he's done so far. I think you were just talking about how it's unrealistic to expect him to play really good football and be super effective and hold on to the ball as a rookie. Not a lot of rookies do that. It's kind of unrealistic for the first overall pick to do that. You'd like to see that, but the jump from college football to the NFL is so different, and it's such a big jump. The playmakers are different on offense. They're also different on defense. The coverages are way more complicated, different rotations. Guys are faster. You can't run away from a defensive end as easily as you could in college. So there's just a ton of different things from college to the NFL that makes the transition extremely hard.
Yeah, and we finally saw it today where he's taking shots down the field too. We didn't see that the first couple weeks, but now Kendrick Bourne gets one. He throws one to Jacoby Myers. It was broken up, but he's at least taking those shots, and we see how accurate he can be. That pass to Kendrick Bourne was awesome. He's a yard short from getting in. Very accurate down the field. He's feeling more confident on throwing it down to the tight ends over the middle of the field. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, those guys are gaining his trust week by week. So it's been impressive. I'm excited to see him continue to grow through the season because I think every week we've seen him progressing, and he's played some dang good defenses up to this point. So he's seen a lot of stuff. Hopefully the offensive line can keep him on his back, but there's always two parts to the equation when you're talking about a quarterback, and that's the weapons around him. I thought today Kendrick Bourne and Damian Harris both showed out along with a bunch of other guys. So before we get into our good, bad, and the injured, I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on these two players and their impact today.
I thought Kendrick Bourne played a good game. To the start of the year, a lot of these new guys, especially like the tight ends and Bourne, like they've taken time to like ease in and like get to know the system. But like Bourne has come on as of recent. His route running, I think, stands out. He can catch the ball. And you saw in that play, he's got some speed to him too. So he's a nice little player that you could play both inside and outside. And it's just, I think he could be, once he gets used to the system and gets on the same page with Mac Jones, I think that'll be a really nice connection. And Myers speaks for itself. I think Myers, he's picked off where he left off. He's not a particularly fast guy, but in the slot, he's a nice little shifty dude. He runs really nice routes. He can beat man coverage. He was the one guy who could beat man coverage for us last year. And just adding him to this offense, he's a nice he complements this offense really well.
Yeah, I thought Kendrick Bourne, not only this game was solid, but But overall this year, I've been really impressed with him. He's exceeded my expectations so far. He's been one of our most sure-handed receivers, doesn't drop a lot of passes. That one in that Cowboys game that got picked off, I mean, he was kind of a high throw, kind of a little bit ahead of him. He said he ran a one-step slant instead of a three-step slant. So different stuff like that, but it just went off the tips of his fingers. Would have been a tough catch. He obviously said he would have liked to make that catch, but he's been great. His route running has been impressive. He has more speed than I expected him to have. He's kind of like Jacoby, where his route running and the crispness of his routes makes up for not a lack of speed necessarily in Kendrick Bourne, but it certainly helps him out, helps him gain separation, helps him early on in his routes. And I've been really impressed with his consistency so far to be able to go from weeks 1 through 3 kind of not doing too much, and then really started to seem like him and Max started to build a connection, and he started to trust him even on crucial downs, third downs, big plays like that. When you target a guy and it gets picked, and the very next play you trust him against the same guy in coverage and throw it up to him for a 75 or whatever it was yard touchdown, that shows you have confidence in him. And I think that's been really great to see being built between him and Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry and some of those other guys.
Yeah, I think Kendrick Bourne's been one of the most consistent signings we've had outside of Hunter Henry. In the offseason, we thought that Nelson Aguilar might be the big play guy, but we've seen more big plays from Kendrick Bourne. The touchdown last week, the big catch this week, the touchdown. He's been great. I really underestimated the signing of him. I thought he was going to be more of a spot guy, but I think he showed everything where he can run vertical. He can run in the middle of the field. He can run quick bubble screens, and obviously now we know he can throw the ball too, along with Jacoby Myers. So we have a bunch of guys that can do a lot of things, and that's what makes our offense so versatile if we get rolling. And the other thing is Damian Harris. The thing I look at right here, 7.6 yards per carry. That's nuts. Like, and props to the offensive line for that, for getting knocked back. But I felt like every time he got it, we probably could have marched him down the field, 9-play drive, and scored without having to throw the ball with how he was running effectively. Damian Harris, after his two fumbles that he's had this year that have been costly in big moments of the game, he's looked very good both last week and this week, 2 weeks in a row with 100+ yards, and it's looking like he's getting back to himself. I
mean, like, Kendrick Bourne kind of reminds me of Jacoby Myers. I mean, not to mention that he can throw the ball, like you said, but just their play styles is like, I mean, he reminds me of he's like a faster Jacoby Myers. Like, he's just a very crisp route runner, and he can catch the ball. Like, he's a very nice possession guy, and I think he's just, the further he gets in this offense, he could be like a real someone Mac Jones can rely on third and long, stuff like that, to get him out of tough situations. And he goes along great with Jacoby Myers as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see these guys, and I want to get your thoughts on this real quick before we go to the good, bad, and all that stuff. Kind of just overall season projections. Who so far? We'll kind of touch on all of them, but who do you think was the best signing we've had so far on each side of the ball, and maybe a couple guys that you have either really been impressed with or haven't been as happy with so far this year?
I think far and away, Judon has been our best free agent signing for sure. He's just been dominant. I think you mentioned earlier that he's slowed down a little bit this last couple weeks, but he's still he's a game wrecker, and he has been our most consistent player, I think, on the whole team. So I think far and away he was our best signing. Hunter Henry's coming on. I think both the tight ends have been a little disappointing until late. They've gotten into it a little bit more, especially Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is showing us why he was viewed as a red zone threat, because he's got, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks in a row with a touchdown, something like that. So that's coming along. Johnny Smith, I know he got hurt before, halfway through the game, but on the first drive, they went to him 6 straight times. That screen on that screen pass, you could see the burst, you could see the explosiveness in his running ability. So I mean, he has talent. He's just got to find out where he fits in this offense. And I think each game, he had his horrible game against the Saints, but since then he's been coming along more and more each game. And I think he's eventually he's going to be a really nice weapon for us. He's here for 4 years. I think Henry's here for just 2. So we definitely would. I think Johnny has a little bit more time, but again, you gave him a lot of money, so you'd like to see him like have a more profound role in this offense by the end of the year. But like I think you're spot on. I think Kendrick Bourne would be like be the number 2 free agent signing that right behind Judon.
Yeah, for me on the offensive side, Hunter Henry's been the guy that we've been missing all along with the big threat down the middle. Alex hit it on the head. Matt Judon, you mentioned it. Another one I thought that knocked it out of the park that's underrated on the defensive side is Godchow. I think he's been a very, very good addition on the defensive line with a young Christian Barmore. You can kind of have Godchow and Lawrence Guy being there as veterans and then develop Christian Barmore where he doesn't have to feel like he has to play a very, very, high amount of snaps a game. He can come in and do his thing in a certain role and develop. So I think Godchow on the defensive side along with Judon. And then the disappointing ones for me have been Jaylen Mills on the defensive side just hasn't really lived up on the coverage side of things. He's had good here and there. He got burned by CeeDee Lamb multiple times last week. Couple big penalties this week. We'll get into that in the good and bad and injured. But then on the offensive side, I don't know if you consider this a signing. Maybe it was, but Trent Brown, right? He's an addition. He hasn't played enough for us to
about him.
For us to say anything. He was an addition that people might have said was the biggest one, moving him back, bringing him back on that offensive line. And after today, how I saw Ted Karras play, or I saw Michael Winter play at right tackle, I'm not so sure that we don't want to move Trent Brown to left tackle and either find a new spot for Isaiah Wynn on the interior. Because in 15 and 16, before Isaiah Wynn moved to tackle his senior year at Georgia, he was an interior offensive lineman for like most of his snaps. In 16, he played 734 of his 790 snaps at left guard. So I think he has the versatility to move into guard. And I'm not so sure that, Michael Wyndham shouldn't stay at right tackle where he was dominant last season. You can keep Shaq Mason, David Andrews, and whether it's Ted Karras or you want to move Isaiah Wynn in to that guard. Isaiah Wynn needs to prove something. I don't think he's really proven it at tackle. He hasn't been as bad as of late, but with the whole situation of the offensive line, I think that Michael Wyndham has found a spot at right tackle because of Trent Brown being injured and being kind of a disappointing signing for us.
And he was great last year. I mean, he was one of the best graded offensive linemen as a rookie. And he was extremely impressive. And Isaiah Wynn so far has struggled early on. I mean, he's been a little bit better in recent weeks. Like this week, he was pretty solid overall. He did have a holding penalty. But he hasn't been the player that I think they expected he would be when they signed his 5th-year option or opted into his 5th-year option for next season. He hasn't been that impressive. I mean, once Trent Brown is back, maybe your best 5 is still Trent at right tackle, Isaiah Wynn at left, and Onwenu moving back to left guard. But I mean, overall, it's tough to say because we might never see Trent Brown again. He might retire from the NFL because his calf is going to hinder him the rest of his life. So praying for Trent Brown. Hope he's okay. Hope that calf injury heals up quick and doesn't damage his life further in the future. But no, I've been so frustrated for Trent Brown so far. Just the expectations. I should have seen it coming with what happened with the Raiders last year. And I don't know. It's frustrating when you think a guy is going to be so dominant and his first snap in a real game was like a 35-yard run for Damian Harris where him and Shaq Mason just obliterated the Dolphins defense. So it's tough, but on the Jaylen Mills aspect, I know he's been a little bit disappointing in some aspects, but when we look at the signing as a whole, I don't think anybody expected him to be a guy that you're going to line up one-on-one on CeeDee Lamb and have him have any success. That's just not what he's good at. He's better as a safety. We've talked about that. If he was going to play outside corner like he is, he's going to have his ups and downs. That's what he is as a player. If this is what they signed him to do, the signing doesn't make a ton of sense, but he hasn't really disappointed me based off my level of expectation for what I thought he would be. This is what I thought he would be coming in. And I think he maybe has even been better than I expected in some aspects. He's been inconsistent at times, let up some big plays, had a couple big penalties here and there, but he's also made his fair share of plays that I didn't really expect him to make based off my expectations of him playing outside corner.
See, he actually exceeded my expectations because my expectations were rather low to start the year because of what I saw from him in training camp. He did not have a good training camp. I've said it many times. I was really worried about the cornerback position if he was going to be your number 2 corner. And frankly, up until like the past couple weeks, like he had a
Really
a
good
rough
start.
game. He had a rough game this week, and last week he gave up the game winner. Yeah, but before that, he actually was playing pretty well. I thought he was one of your more consistent guys on defense as well. But again, the past couple weeks he's struggled, and I think you're right. He wasn't brought in to be a number 2 corner. I don't think. I think he was just like kind of like emergency insurance for for cornerback, but he has more value as a safety in my opinion than a corner, and I feel like he's more here to be that hybrid safety kind of role because we have so many safeties, like
I
so
still
many
just
high.
don't understand his role. Like
Yeah,
they're
I don't either.
signing him to a 4-year deal. You got to have a big role in vision for him, and that he's going to be a part of this future for the next 4+ years. I don't see a role that makes sense. He's not great at outside corner. We have plenty of safeties. He's better as a hybrid like that, but overall the signing didn't make sense. So my expectations haven't been that high.
Maybe they view him as a number 2 safety for some reason. I don't know. I thought when we first signed him, I thought the same thing. I'm like, what is this guy's role going to be? And then they got difficult with Gilmore and that whole thing. So now he's flushed out second outside corner. So it's like maybe they view him as a corner. I don't agree with them, but I mean, what do I know? Maybe he comes along. I don't know. I don't know what his long-term role is, but for right now, he's our number 2 corner, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and my only thing that I don't know if this is something that they might be thinking about for the future, but Jaylen Mills, the only way this signing makes sense to me is if they see Devin McCourty retiring and they have somebody in mind for that. Like maybe Duggar switches back over to deep safety, even though he's been great in the box overall. He hasn't been great in coverage, one-on-one on tight ends. But unless they have a guy in mind to move to that deep safety role, and then Jaylen Mills fills in as another strong safety, box safety, whatever they want him to do, hybrid guy, covers tight ends, whatever it is they have in mind for him. That's the only thing that I can see that would make sense in my eyes for the signing based on he's not a great outside corner. He's better at safety. We have a ton of safeties and we don't have a ton of outside corners. So he's kind of been forced to play this role. And if this is the role they had in mind for him, I don't like it. I would be very okay with him being a number 4 corner for us, or more of a depth guy that plays situationally as a hybrid piece that, is Mills going to blitz? Is he going to cover a tight end, wide receiver? What's he going to, just stuff like that. But overall, 4 years is a long time for a guy that a role doesn't really make a ton of sense. I know they had a ton of money and they could spend it on whoever they wanted, but I was just a little bit surprised. That was the most surprising signing that I didn't expect, even after we signed Jonnu and then we signed Hunter Henry. That was surprising, but just Jaylen Mills, that one never really made that much sense to me.
I don't think they would have gotten rid of Gilmore if they didn't feel like our corners were good enough. If they were not confident in Jaylen Mills the rest of the season, I don't think that, because even if they do get rid of Gilmore and they are like, okay, Jaylen Mills is a safety, do you guys think that Jawan Williams or Jonathan Jones are a better cornerback too than Jaylen Mills? I really think that this was their plan for Jaylen Mills, because if you look at it, I think Shaun Wade's a more suited safety than Jaylen Mills is. I don't think Shaun Wade can be a corner at this league, especially after the struggles he had his senior year at Ohio State. So I think Shaun Wade's eventually going to be the one that they move to safety. And then we have Duggar, you have Adrian Phillips, you have other guys that can play that. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think that his role is still like confusing what it is, but I think that they really are confident in him being the cornerback too. And that's a head scratcher for me, because so far he has not looked like that. And maybe they're going to move him to cornerback 3 and draft a guy or get someone in the offseason or make a trade that no one sees coming, because Kyle Fuller did just request it here. They did say Kyle Fuller is available from Denver on the trade block. Maybe they go out and try to make a move. I don't know. I don't think that they have anything else in store for him other than playing quarterback, because there's more suited guys that I see playing safety than Jaylen Mills. And the contract that they gave him, I don't know, man. It was kind of a bigger one for his talent at that time.
And the McCourty thing is kind of interesting, because I feel like this could be his last year. But the thing is, like, look at Jaylen Mills. Doesn't he kind of remind you of like Patrick Chung, Chung kind of player? And so does Duggar in a way. I feel like Duggar's in that Patrick Chung role right now. But Jaylen Mills' makeup kind of reminds me of Chung. maybe he will be eventual replacement for Devin McCourty. Maybe he's Devin McCourty insurance instead of I thought maybe he was Gilmore insurance. Maybe he's actually Devin McCourty insurance because this could be I think this is the final year of his contract, so he may be gone after this. So maybe that's it. But like, who's to tell? 4-year deal. I guess maybe he's got that versatility that maybe his role will just change over time. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I don't want it to sound like I'm hating on Jaylen Mills or I think he's been horrible, because I really don't. He's, like I said, he's surpassed my expectations so far. I had basically no expectations for what he would be. I thought he was going to be getting burned every other throw, and throughout the first 3-4 games, he had me biting my tongue because he was really doing solid. You didn't hear his name called a lot. You didn't see his number getting thrown out a ton. Overall, he was solid. He wasn't a liability at all on the defense side of the ball. He made a great play in Miami that week 1 game. He's made his fair share of plays here and there. Today, he had a few nice tackles behind the line of scrimmage where they'd had a little swing pass out to the left, and I think it was Elijah Moore was the guy who trying to block him, and he blew right by him and made the tackle. He's made his fair share of plays. I have been impressed overall with what I've seen from him, and he hasn't seemed like a liability. I mean, when you got him lining up against CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, these guys, that's just not what he's meant to do. That offense is stacked. The wide receiver core is stacked. I thought his number not being called many times against the Bucs was extremely impressive. I know he kind of had more help he had more safety help than most of the other guys were kind of more man matched up one-on-one, but I just overall, I've been impressed with what I've seen from him. I still just don't understand the signing as in general. And if it is him to play in that Patrick Chung role and somebody else move to deep safety, okay, that makes sense. And I'll be extremely okay with that, because I do like Jaylen Mills as a player. I think he's talented. I think he has his skill set that can help this team. With the role he's playing right now and where we have our holes, he doesn't really fit one of those needs currently.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good talk right there about, disappointing people. But let's get into our good, bad, and the injured, the thing that we do everything, talk about who we thought was good, who we thought was bad from today's game instead of the whole season. So, Cole, I'll let you start off, and then we'll kind of just go in a circle. So, Cole and then Jacob, and then I'll finish. But who do you think was at the top of your good list?
This one will be quick for me because we've kind of touched on it a little bit. But Damian Harris, I just think overall, we touched on it last episode too. Not only his production the past 2 games has been really, really solid and kind of more aligned with what we expected this year with this offensive line and him in general, but not his toughness and what he's been fighting through. He's certainly banged up. You could see last game visibly he was hurting. He kept having to come out, go on the sideline. He would go in the medical tent, come back out, go run like his hair's on fire for 10, 15 more yards and take 3 defenders with him. He runs the ball so angry and so aggressively, and like it's his last run he's ever going to have. And he is not afraid of contact. It looks like he seeks contact, even with injuries, even banged up, even if he's on one leg, he's fighting for every yard. And as we've seen a couple times, the fumble thing has happened, but overall he's been really solid. I'm really happy with him as our running back number 1. He averaged 7.6 yards per carry today. I mean, that's great. I know it is the Jets, but their defensive line and linebacker group, even if they were missing Mosley, has been decent on the year. They've kind of been average, but 7.6 yards per carry is certainly not average.
So a player I thought was pretty good today. Well, I think I'm just going to put it as a group, the offensive line. I think the offensive line was really good today, as we touched on earlier. And I think it's just this offense is going to live and die by the offensive line, whether it's running the ball, keeping Mac Jones upright. It's all good. And like, if you want your deep shots down the field, Mac Jones is going to have some time, going to need some time to actually find the guy downfield and for the guy to get down there. So like this offense is going to live and die by the offensive line. And it's just, if that's not right, then nothing's going to be right. And so the better that line goes each and every week, the better the offense will be overall.
Totally agree. Both those guys were good for me. I'm going to go with more of a situation here. I'm going to go with red zone scoring. It's been something that people have been down on. We got in the red zone 6 times today. I'm pretty sure all 6 of them were touchdowns. 6 for 6, getting in there and not just getting field goals, right? Getting points. And the Jets were 2 for 2. Both their touchdowns were off of that. We're off of red zone scoring. So maybe that's a bad that I could throw in there. I'm not going to, but good. Let's just focus on that. 6 for 6. We got in the red zone 6 times, 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, the one to Hunter Henry, the screen pass to Brandon Bolden. I thought that, not only getting in the red zone, but executing and putting the ball through for 6 points was a big time takeaway from this game and something that we've been calling for a while.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of touch on a guy here that I've been crapping on most of the year so far, Brandon Bolden. He made his plays when he had his opportunities on screen passes, different stuff. It wasn't anything really flashy, but he created after the catch when he had the ball in his hands. I know he had a ton of space, but he made the plays that were given to him early on this year. I've been frustrated seeing him get touches because he never does anything with it. And it almost looks like, not that he's scared to get hit, but like he doesn't ever fight for that extra yard. This year, I've seen him a lot, either like run out of bounds or like kind of slowly stop right before he gets hit and then gets no yards after, just gets stopped in his tracks right there. Today, I thought he ran more aggressively when he got the ball in his hands. He seeked contact a little bit more and fought for those extra yards. And I thought overall he was pretty impressive, even though this entire year, anytime Brandon Bolden's on the field and he touches the football, I want to throw my remote at the TV. But today, that was not the case.
Oh, for sure. I'm right there with you. And how about New York? For them taking as long as they did to figure out that, hey, Brandon Bolden's coming out of the backfield and Mac Jones will look at him. Like, how many times did he come out of the backfield and they just threw it right to him? He was wide open. Like, holy mackerel. Another good player I thought was, we touched on it again. Kendrick Bourne. He's coming along really, really well. And he's got a little bit of explosiveness to him. He's quick. He's got some good route running ability. I like him as a player. He's got good attributes to be a really solid piece in this offense. And I just really am excited to see how he's going to just evolve in this offense, like later on. I think he would be a really good player for us.
Yeah, I'm going to give my second one. This is actually an actual play. I'm going to go Kyle Duggar, 2 straight weeks with an interception, 9 tackles, 7 of them solos. I thought Kyle Duggar doing his thing, being that hybrid safety. You saw him that was actually a pretty dang impressive pick, not letting it touch the ground, readjusting it in his fingertips, pulling it up and going. So Kyle Duggar, I thought he did have a little bit, 1 or 2 snaps where he looked a little lost in coverage, but for the majority of the game, I'm going to give him a good, especially that interception 2 in a row. You gotta give the man some credit where credit's due. So Kyle Duggar for me on the defensive side.
Yeah, I thought he was good in the running game, making that interception. That was a phenomenal catch. I mean, that was really impressive. That was like near, not quite as impressive, obviously, but that was like near the amount of like focus and like just overall being able to catch that football with his fingertips, focus enough to not let it touch the ground, and while he's twisting, readjusting his body. That reminded me of that Edelman catch in the Falcon Super Bowl, that like where he let go of the ball and caught it again right before the ground. We all know that play, but yeah, that was really impressive. I've been a little bit frustrated with his coverage ability on tight ends. He's let up some big plays, but overall this year it's been better than it was last year. He's been tighter in coverage, at least, even if he is still giving up some of those plays. He's at least contesting it. Like I only saw him give up 1 or 2. One of them was to Griffin on the sideline, 86, one of their tight ends, and he was right on his back and tried to punch the ball out kind of when he wrapped his arm around him. But he's been making his plays in the backfield as a run defender. Like when Kyle Duggar knows they're running the football and he gets involved, he's got elite acceleration, great speed, great ability to shoot the gap and understand where he's supposed to be at certain times. So I thought he was solid today as well. Another thing I had on kind of the good list was just, this is kind of overall situational football. No turnovers. You won the turnover battle. 4th down, you were 1 for 1, 7 for 12 on 3rd down. Good in the red zone. No punts blocked this time. You only had 1 sack allowed, 1 punt, and 6 penalties, which it says we had 6 penalties for 95 yards, but it didn't seem like we were having key penalties at key moments like we did in the past, where we've had that Jacoby Myers would have been a touchdown last week and it gets called back by a holding, or just different stuff like that. Key different different key penalties. We didn't see those as much today. Just situational football overall with the no turnovers, good third down efficiency, fourth down 1-for-1, 32 first downs. That's a lot. That's good. The offensive line in general, just as a whole, this was the cleanest football game we've seen. And this was the first game that I can say this looked like Patriots football.
Oh yeah, there wasn't many like anything that was like drive killers, like any penalties or stuff like that, mistakes. So I agree with you there. Another good I have, and you kind of touched on this with the red zone offense, Hunter Henry. He's becoming like I said earlier, a red zone weapon, and that's something we've lacked tremendously for a couple years now. And so it's nice to finally have a red zone weapon for Mac Jones, and that like now when we get into the red zone and we actually open it up and throw it in the red zone, we have a big, strong target that can go and get the ball, and it's something we've lacked for a while. I mean, last year we had Ryan Izzo with that same number, and now Hunter Henry, it feels like a dream come true.
Gabe Pats would say otherwise. He'd say
Okay,
Hunter Henry
yeah,
does
I
not
know.
deserve to wear that number after Ryan Izzo. No, I agree. Hunter Henry's been great. Go ahead, Jace. You can go with your next one.
Oh no, I was gonna. Mine kind of goes into this Hunter Henry run, right? I'm gonna go with the 2-minute drive that set up this touchdown. 11 plays, 72 yards in a minute 28, right before the half to get another touchdown. Just extend that lead from 24-7 to 31-7. I was very impressed with the way Mac handled that, moving the ball down the field. And then I thought that Jacoby Myers was going to get a touchdown. He probably would have if he didn't get that pass interference called on the linebacker that grabbed him right at the goal line. And then Hunter Henry runs a little stick nod route. Mac Jones, honestly, I mean, I know we praise Mac Jones. Honestly, not the best ball, right? Like, could have been on him better, but credits. That's why you go get a red zone target like Hunter Henry. Big, long catch radius, big hands, great concentration. Mac Jones, gets it in there on a 2-minute drive. So I was impressed with the 2-minute drive before the half, even though it didn't really mean anything, but just that he, was able to execute that.
Jacob, you got anything
Yeah,
to say
I
to this?
just saw that. Yeah, that's always a good time.
Yeah, overall, I agree with what you said there. It's good to have actual weapons and actual red zone targets, and it's good to see that we've been using them early on in the season. We were all kind of like, okay, we got Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. We got two guys who had almost I think they had 16 touchdowns combined last year, or 15, something like that, touchdowns combined last year. They were great red zone threats, and to see us not utilize them was frustrating, and we've seen that change. I think Hunter Henry's had 3 or 4 straight games with a touchdown. I mean, that's been great, and that kind of leads into my next guy, who I thought was whoa, what is going on there? Let me try
Game
this again.
Pass. Just kidding. It's not Game Pass, but
There we go.
that's
All right.
just the running joke.
Yeah, Game Pass. Oh, yeah, pass discuss. Jacob.
Oh, don't
Jacob,
even get me started.
Yeah, Game
get
Pass
started
has
about
been
that.
extremely frustrating this year. But this other guy I had was Jonnu Smith, and like we talked about, them getting him involved early and often. They've been talking about his breakout game coming, and I think this was kind of what they were looking to do. They were looking to get him involved. He has not really been as much of a factor. He's been getting involved here and there over the past few weeks, but ever since that Saints game when he played, I mean, horrendously, he had a terrible game. But I mean, players have bad games, and you got to bounce back. You got to still have trust in him. And I thought overall he played pretty solid today. He made some plays when they were targeting him. If he didn't get injured early, I think he would have been more of a factor, because I mean, you can see what they get excited about. He's great after the catch. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he can certainly make plays. So I'm excited to see him to continue to develop in this offense. We got him for 4 more years, Hunter Henry for 3, Kendrick Bourne for 3, I believe. So the core of offensive weapons and the guys that we've been seeing do solid so far, I'm really excited to see how they continue to progress. And overall, we got just our offensive core in general is really exciting, and I'm excited to see them develop over the next 4 or 5 years.
This is one of those games. I just think I mean, I know you got some good, some bad. This is not a lot of bad to take away from this game. Like you could probably go on with all the good players in this one.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before the episode was, as far as bad, it's tough to pick out because nobody was horrible today. Usually when we have a loss, you got either decision making by the coaching that I was frustrated about last game, or poor performances, or maybe blocked punts, special teams, all that stuff. But overall, this game there wasn't a ton of that. Do you guys have any more goods you want to touch on before we move on to maybe some of the bads or injured?
No, I don't.
I think I'm good.
Okay. Did anybody have any bad players or anything? I know anything bad is going to be kind of a nitpick, but either you guys have anything you wanted to touch on that you thought was bad?
I mean, the only real bad I really can think of this is Jaylen Mills, and we already touched on that. I thought he had a little bit of a rough game, but even like that, he wasn't awful. It is kind of a nitpick. I thought he could have been better, but he's probably one of the downs I could think of. Maybe I could think of another one, but I think that's the only real down you can take from this game.
Yeah, the down for me, I already mentioned it, is the lack of sacks. Only one sack coming from a corner. And I don't want to nitpick it because we didn't need pressure, but it's always nice to have sacks. Helps the back end. Maybe Jaylen Mills would have been a little better if he didn't have to hold up in coverage for so long. So that's the only thing for me. And I mean, I'm not criticizing Judon, any guys like that, because they've been stellar throughout the whole year. But I mean, if you're Matt Judon and you're almost leading the league in sacks, and you're going against the Jets, who are missing one of their best offensive tackles in Mekhi Becton, you should be having a heyday. And I feel like we didn't get enough pressure on him outside of that one sack that we had. So that's the only nitpick thing that I had. And I really don't think that it's that big of a deal, but it definitely would have helped last week against Dallas. It would have helped a little bit more this week, maybe cause one or two more sacks, especially against, or one or two more turnovers, especially against a backup quarterback making his first NFL start. You come in, you get pressure on him early, it might rattle him. So that's really the only thing I saw.
Yeah, that was going to be the thing I pointed out as well, especially a couple weeks in a row now. The pass rush hasn't been as good, but Dallas has an incredible offensive line, and this week maybe just could have been an off week. But yeah, that was the one thing I was going to say. Even though some of their passing game was kind of just getting the ball out quickly, and it was good to see some of our guys making plays at the line of scrimmage. Teachers Wise, Kyle Van Noy swatting down a couple passes, so stuff like that's always good. But you'd like to see a little more pressure on the quarterback, especially like you said, with their best offensive lineman out, and they got a backup quarterback in. Even when Zach Wilson was in, didn't get a ton of pressure. We moved them out of the pocket a couple times, but other than that, the only bad I could say is extra points. I think we missed one or two, maybe. But I mean, that's extremely nitpicky. You know what I mean? It's just there wasn't a ton of that
this week.
Yeah. Folk is no, but he's been nails all year. He's been really good. So, but I mean, I guess extra point would be the only thing. But that's, I mean, when you got that little to say about the bads, it's got to be a good game. So, anybody else have any other bads they want to touch on besides that?
So just one thing, and I kind of touched on it earlier, and you mentioned the pass rush. I think this front seven is just, it's very slow. It's very slow, and it makes you really like Hightower, Van Noy, Collins, like they're all very slow. I don't feel like besides Uche's got some speed to him, but besides him, it's like there's not a lot of speed up front, and I just feel like when you get the teams like the Chargers or the Ravens, I know we don't play the Ravens this year, but teams like that who are just quick, like you're just gonna. I feel like we don't have those sideline to sideline players in the front seven that can keep up. And so this week against Eckler, I feel like that's a horrible matchup. And I feel like we need to eventually, like this offseason, get some linebackers with some speed, because we just really lack speed right now. And it didn't show itself as much today, but in the for most of the season, like they're just outrunning us for like most of the game.
Yeah, and I mean they addressed that a little bit in the draft. I guess you could say with McGrone, he's a little bit more of a speed guy, sideline to sideline, but also fifth round pick. Expectations aren't going to be that high. But I agree with you. I think you see a lot of these guys that are some of the best linebackers in the league that make the most plays. That they're versatile. They're guys that can fly around. I mean, it's definitely something that I've noticed, and I think adding Jamie Collins helps that. But we really haven't seen a ton from him yet so far. Hightower is. I thought he would look a little bit quicker since he's slimmed down, but he's kind of still been pretty slow. Bentley, I will say, has, compared to last year, he's way faster than he was last year, it seems, on the field. He's playing faster. I don't know if his knowledge of the game has just went up and he lost a little weight and he's, a little quicker, but he's involved on a lot of plays. And in the passing game last year, I would say if he's ever covering somebody, I would throw it right to them, because there's no way Bentley's covering him. But this year he's been a little bit better. Still, last week, I believe he had a couple receptions he let up against Zeke. I still don't love him in coverage, but yeah, overall, I think speed on this defense side of the ball in that front seven linebacker position. We don't have a ton of guys flying around. Most of those guys are like Duggar, guys in the secondary, strong safeties that we put in the box, Adrian Phillips, stuff like that. But even Uche, he's been quiet over the past few weeks. I have hardly seen his name called at all or him make any great plays, which I was really expecting a big year from him based off all the things we heard in preseason, OTAs, training camp, all that stuff. So that's been a little bit of a disappointment as well. But overall, I do agree with you there. The speed could use a little improvement, and drafting some of that next year wouldn't be bad.
It's just one of those things that we always like we always mock draft like in the first round of us taking a speedy pass coverage linebacker every year, and we never do take it. It's always I don't know if Bill just likes those like down to down like run stopping linebackers like Hightower and Van Noy. He's not, you don't see him go after these speedy linebackers all that often, and just I doubt that'll like just ever change. But I mean, I feel like now, like in this day and age of the NFL, where it's just such a passing league that I feel like it's got to eventually change. You got to eventually adjust to the times in that regard, or else it's just gonna get exploited for that like every week.
I will say though, just to follow up real quick, that I do think keeping kind of some of the bigger linebackers this year might be a result of getting pummeled in the run game last year. I mean, we were horrible against the run last year. Now we got more bodies. We beefed up the defensive line. We got Hightower back. Bentley's been better. Just have Van Noy's back. Jamie Collins is back now. We got more guys that can be up front. We can't get dominated as easily if people are going in like goal line personnel at the goal line. We've made some great stops. I mean, we stopped the Cowboys on a huge 4 plays straight, first, second, third, and fourth down. That was huge, big part of the game. Last year, I guarantee first and goal, they would have probably got that. It's just we couldn't do anything when we really got to have it situations. We were getting run all over. Miami was dominating us in the run game, and they were horrible running the football last year. So I do think that might be one of the things that kind of drove him to get some of those bigger guys back and keep a big front seven where when we need to, we can stop the run. And hey, if we got speed in the secondary, we can adjust to the passing game and figure that out. But if we can stop the run and make them one dimensional, then maybe in the passing game, it'll be a little easier. We can run some different coverages that will be good against that or something like that.
Yeah, adding speed's going to be big. I think Cameron McGrone will be good once he gets back next year. I mean, obviously that's not going to help us this year. I think that he was a guy that fell in the draft due to some injuries, injury concern, and obviously him not being able to play this year. But I think Cameron McGrone will help us with that, add a little bit more versatility. And then hopefully Jamie Collins gets an extended role next week and can provide some value to us, because having guarding Austin Eckler out of the backfield is going to be a tall task. I think how you counter that is chipping him with your defensive end, which is going to slow down your pass rush just a little bit. But if he's trying to get out, you're going to have Judon or someone at least try to get a hand or a shoulder on him to slow him down, help your backers a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how we deal with him next week with the, speed of the defenses that we have right now. But let's get into the injury report. A lot of guys injured today. A lot of guys that went out, including Devin McCourty, Lawrence Guy. Now I'm drawing a blank after all these guys.
I got the list here.
Cole has them, yeah.
Shaq Mason.
Shaq Mason
left the game questionable with that same ab injury that he has missed a couple games with. Harvey Lange went out with a knee injury. Devin McCourty, ab injury. I don't know what these guys, how they're hurting their abs. I don't really know what's going on there, but Jonnu Smith, shoulder injury. Carl Davis, wrist. Hightower, elbow. He was out. Ramondre was healthy scratch. Jonathan Jones was put on IR the other day.
Great.
Winovich on IR. Henry Anderson IR. That was now we're getting kind of a while ago, but just overall, I mean, we had like 16 guys on the injury report last week, and we're probably going to have 5 or 6 additions to that this week. So our injury report is, I mean, it's like two or three practice squads for some teams. It's ridiculous how many guys we got on the injury report. We've been lucky so far with not a lot of like long-term injuries. I mean, knock on wood, besides James White, and Henry Anderson. Yeah. Thank you. Jonathan Jones, we'll see how that goes. But what's your level of concern with not only the health of the team in general, but specifically Jonathan Jones? Because I think that's quite a loss, even if it's only for a few games.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the depth of the secondary and losing Stephon Gilmore, stuff like that, and it's just you can't really afford to lose someone like Jonathan Jones because now Miles Bryant is your slot corner, and now it's up to your outside guys, and you still got Jackson and Mills, but Mills missed a game or two with an injury, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, and it's really not helpful that the bye is like at the end of the year, but but I mean, like, yeah, it's one of those things that like I feel like every team has got to deal with, but at the same time, like, I mean, that's just luck at that point, and I feel like it's this week it'll be tough because I don't feel good about Miles Bryant on anybody. I don't even feel good about Jaylen Mills on anybody against the Chargers wide receiver core. So I mean, it's starting to catch up to us a little bit, and now that we got a convincing win, and we need to start stringing some wins together, these injuries are not coming at a very opportune time.
Yeah, I agree. I like what Gabe said right here.
Yeah,
Adding a
that's good.
corner if Jonathan Jones is out for an extended period of time, I think is very smart. The trade deadline's coming up here. It's the first week in November. I think it's the 2nd or the 6th. I don't know why those two numbers get flopped in my head, but it's one of those dates. So it's coming up. It's going to be in a week. So if that is the case, Kyle Fuller, I mentioned it. He just became available. Maybe we get Jason McCourty back here. Maybe we sign a veteran, free agent. We brought in a couple of them in the offseason and then didn't really sign them. So I do think that there is a chance that we have to sign another cornerback, depending on what the extent of Jonathan Jones's injury is, because it does get a little hairy there with Justin Bethel, Miles Bryant, guys like that are now going to be thrust into very, very crucial snaps and probably a lot of snaps in the game. So,
Yeah, what would you think about bringing back Jason McCourty?
I don't love Jason McCourty. I didn't love him last year. I mean, he's a good little player, but I mean, he's definitely not up to like up to par with like his brother in terms of like his value to the team. I think.
You love him more than Jawan Williams.
Oh, of course, Juwan Williams shouldn't even be on the field. He shouldn't even be suited up. So I mean, if you can get him for like really cheap, then go for it. I mean, I would like someone a little better, but I mean, I guess it is the trade deadline. It's gonna be hard to really upgrade. But I mean, if you can get him for a good deal, go ahead. But I mean, it'd be nice if Sean Wade could come back and maybe contribute a little bit. But I know wasn't he more of a slot corner or something? I don't remember.
Yeah,
But
in college he had good success at slot corner. Then he tried to go to outside corner and he got torched.
oh, that makes me feel better. But
Yeah.
but I mean, like at this point, like it'd be nice to see what he can do. And then if you can get someone like McCourty or Fuller in here, that would be. I mean, anything's helpful at this point.
Yeah, I honestly would not mind at all Jason McCourty back. Obviously, that's not number one solution. That wouldn't be best case scenario, but a guy that is a veteran. He's had his experience here. He played like 60% of the snaps last year on defense for us. A guy that would be able to jump right in and within 1 week be on the field and be comfortable playing with those guys. I think that would be a solid piece to add. That's not going to cost a lot. His playing time in Miami has been going down every week. He's not getting used very often. It probably would only cost a 6th or 7th round pick, something like that, or even maybe a pick swap. I don't think it'd be anything crazy. His contract's not bad. He's not the best player in the world, but I don't think it'd be bad. I think a guy with experience, I think he could have a role here, and it'd be better than seeing Jawan Williams on the field trying to cover anybody. He can't cover tight ends. He can't cover wide receivers. He did make a couple plays today where he punched out the ball or the receiver kind of dropped it on one of them. But overall, it's just anytime I see Jawan Williams on the field, I feel like I'm seeing the back of his jersey quite a lot, and he's getting burnt by somebody.
Jawan Williams, man, what could have been? Like, I was excited for him outside coming out of the draft too, but man, he cannot play football. Like he can't. There's no two ways about it. And people tried defending him in preseason too. I'm like, yeah, how about no? He's gonna show. He's not gonna be like that in the regular season. No shot. And
even in the preseason, he had let up a couple big plays. He was solid, but I don't know.
No, I thought he sucked in the preseason too. I mean, I didn't think he was that good. I mean, he made a couple plays here and there, but nothing crazy. Nothing to make you excited to see what he can do in the season. Are you kidding me?
He's definitely one of the DBs that if he gets burnt by 20 yards and the guy drops it, he's No, DBU baby, no way. That's all me.
A lot
He's
of a lot of
definitely one of those
corners are
guys.
like that.
Yeah,
Oh
but
man.
that was disappointing. I mean, it's a great thought. I mean, hey, having a big cornerback, 6'3", who you can match up against bigger receivers, jump ball receivers, all that stuff. That'd be good for this week against guy Mike Williams, who's making plays, jump ball plays, 50-50 plays. I mean, he's been great. So I don't love the matchups that we're gonna have with him and Keenan Allen and whoever else I got. Austin Eckler at the running back position. They got a really good offense and they're playing good football so far. So it's gonna be tough with our cornerback depth to see who's gonna be having success there next week.
Yeah, if I see Juwan Williams on Keenan Allen or something, I might have to shut off my TV or something.
Yeah, the game's definitely getting turned off if that ends up being the case. But
Oh God.
yeah, hopefully we don't see any of that next week. But what's kind of your expectations for this little stretch we got? We got Chargers, Panthers, Browns, and then Thursday night game against the Falcons. But this stretch is coming into a key stretch where it's kind of put up or shut up time. You gotta these next 3 games can either put you in a really good spot or a really bad spot to make the playoffs. So what's your thought on this stretch we got coming up?
I think you feel a lot better about this stretch based on the last month. Because I mean, so the Chargers came off a bad loss. They're coming off a bye, but their last game was a bad loss to the Ravens. I think it'll still be a tough game, but you like to think like you blew them out last year. They're obviously a much better team now, but I feel like you have an idea of how to play them on offense. Panthers, yeah, I felt worse about that like a couple months ago. Now I don't feel too bad about that game. I feel like we should win that game. Sam Donald kind of sucks actually. Cleveland is they're kind of like us. They're riddled with injuries. Like they lost Baker Mayfield for who knows how long. They lost both their running backs. I think Chubb's coming back soon, but Hunt's on IR he might be out for a while. And then the Falcons. Like Falcons are the Falcons. They're not a good team. So you should be able to beat them. And then Tennessee's are gonna be a tough one. But I mean, just that stretch right there. I feel a lot better that we came off of this week with a good convincing win against a bad divisional team, and that those other teams are not trending upwards at the moment. That I feel like we could take them a lot better. I feel a lot better about taking them now than I did maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think 3-1 best case scenario, 2-2 worst case scenario. I don't see us dropping the Carolina game or the Atlanta game just because of their situation. Carolina will be getting Christian McCaffrey will be able to come back that week. We don't know if he will be playing, but
might be back too.
Yeah, and then you need to pick up one, whether it's at home against the Browns or on the road against the Chargers, which will obviously bolster your resume too, because both those teams have played good football, not as of late, but they are recognized as 2 of the better teams in the AFC. So one of those wins right there to get you to 3-1, and I think we're sitting in a good spot, especially with most of those games, or with one of those games being at home in the Browns. That would be a big one to win. You don't want to continue to lose home games, close, good home games against AFC opponents, because right now they're looking at a wild card spot too with the way Cincinnati and Baltimore are playing. So that one could come down, later in the year as a big game if we win that one or if we lose it.
I think Tennessee and Buffalo is definitely the 2 hardest challenges we're going to have left on the schedule right now. Buffalo's playing really well. Tennessee's playing even better right now. They just beat Buffalo in a tight one, and they just blew out the Chiefs today. I don't really know what's going on with them, but overall, if you look at the playoff picture, I mean, obviously we're not in a great spot with our 3-4 record, but there's a lot of teams that aren't in great spots either. So if we go on a little run here and they don't, we can sneak into this wild card spot. I mean, not easily necessarily, but I think we definitely still have a shot at making the playoffs, depending on how this team performs over this next tough stretch. There's not many gimme games left. I'd say the Jaguars and the Falcons are probably the 2 easiest ones, and then depending on the Dolphins and what their situation is, they're playing bad football right now. But yeah, I mean, the Browns are going to be missing Kareem Hunt. They might be missing JOK as well. Nick Chubb will probably be back. Maybe Baker will too. We'll see about that. But if Baker's out and Nick Chubb's out and Kareem Hunt and all those guys, it's going to be a much different game than it could have been. But still, tough stretch. We got a lot of tough football games left on the schedule.
I think the Patriots are definitely benefiting from a down year for the AFC. Because this AFC is pretty wide open right now. Because you said the Chiefs are not doing well. The Browns, like they've slowed down a bit. They're fighting for a wild card spot, but even though they started off really hot, like the top guys right now in the AFC are like Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Tennessee and the Chargers. Like it's just those are the teams, and the rest of it's wide open. It's wide open, and just one game. I think we're just one game. Aren't we like one game down from from Buffalo? I don't
Buffalo's
remember.
4-2,
4-2.
3-4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I mean, yeah. So it's like we're not that far away. Just a couple good wins, like, and we're right back in this thing. Like we just need to start stringing some wins together, get some consistency, and we got to start pulling out these big games. We can't keep coming up short with these moral victories against the Cowboys and the Tampa Bay. Like we gotta start winning these games, like against the Bills or the Chargers or the Titans, stuff like that. We got to start pulling these out, or else you're just gonna be another lost year.
Yeah, and the Bucks don't really look. I mean, the Bills don't look like they really have many tough opponents left on their schedule. They have the Bucks, December 12th, so that one's not for a while. We play them twice, obviously, but other than that, they get this kind of the same stuff: Colts, Falcons, Saints, Jags, Dolphins, Jets. So their schedule's looking pretty easy for them. I don't know if they might lose 2 out of the rest of their games, 2 or 3. Maybe they drop one that not expected, but. Division, we're not that far out. I think we'd have to play really, really well. I think we'd have to probably beat Buffalo in both those games to win the division. Yeah. But I mean, you never know. It's any given Sunday. You never know what can happen. So I think the division, we have a shot still. I think we'd have to beat them twice. But overall, as far as a wild card spot, I mean, I think we definitely have a shot depending on how this team plays. The Raiders are leading the AFC West right now. The Bengals are leading the AFC North. I think that's definitely what all of us expect going into the season. So Chiefs being in third place in their division, Browns being in third. There's still a lot of good teams that are kind of hovering around 3-4, 4-3. Colts are 2-4. So it's gonna be tough. There's a lot of teams in that mid-tier range right now, and it's gonna be about whoever wins these tough stretches that we got coming up. And if we do that, there's no reason we can't be a wild card team.
Totally agree. Well, New England beats the Jets 54-13. First team to score 50 points in this NFL season. Big win, needed it at home, divisional opponent. 1 game away from 500 as we take on the Chargers next week. But Cole, Jacob, you guys got anything before we end this?
No, I think I'm good. We got just win. Just got to start winning games, and we're on the right track. We just see if we can string some wins together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be an exciting next few weeks. A lot of tough football games coming up. I think we're really going to be able to see what this team's made of and see if they can string a couple together, because we haven't seen them play one full great football game until today. And I think that's one thing off the checklist that we can check off. And now it's okay. Can we do 2 in a row? Can we start stringing these together? Can we start playing consistent winning football? Consistently playing the Patriots brand of football where we're not turning the ball over, winning the turnover battle, not committing stupid penalties, not committing special teams errors where we're letting punts get blocked. If we can continue to punt the ball 1 time per game like we did today, I don't think we're going to be losing many football games. So just keep playing good football. A lot of exciting games left on the schedule. Got a good one coming up next week against the Chargers. But no, I think that's it. Thank you, Jacob, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll love to have you on again later in the season. Hopefully it'll be a little playoff preview. We'll see. Hopefully we'll be saying, okay, we just got to beat the Jags and Dolphins and we're in the playoffs. It's something like that. So yeah, thank you for coming on. Everybody go check him out on Instagram at pats.discuss. His podcast with Gillette Nation and all those guys. Yoso, if he has to podcast on SoundCloud, right?
SoundCloud, Spotify, everywhere. Pretty much anywhere.
Perfect. And then he's got his episodes that he does as well. Down to Earth Pats Talk on his Instagram. So go check those out. But yeah, big thank you, dude, for coming on.
Thanks again for having me on. Love doing this with you guys.
You got anything else, Jace?
I'm good.
Alrighty. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. We will have a preview episode Wednesday or Thursday. We're not positive yet, but I'll let you know on my Instagram. And until then, we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.